Hello children, how are you? I hope you all are fit and fine. Well, I'm Satinder Kaur and today I'll be taking up lesson 3 from the book Social and Political Life for class 6. And the name of the lesson is What is Government? Children, you must have heard this word government mentioned several times in newspapers, on radio or TV, or in general conversation. Now, what is government? What does it do? And how does it function? Our today's lesson will answer all these questions. But before we start the lesson, let's take a look at these news headlines. Government sought to protect rights of unorganized workers. Detailed plan to tackle floods soon, says government. Government fixes prices of onions, says no shortage in market. Supreme Court can have 5 more judges, government. Government for revamping coal and power sector. Over 15,000 villages declared scarcity hit by government. In simple words, the government refers to a governing body that makes decisions and gets things done for the welfare of its people. Children, these headlines must have given you a fair idea of what a government does or what it is expected to do. Isn't it a wide range of activities? In this lesson, we shall talk about many other things that a government does, but before that, let's understand what a government is. Every country needs a government to make decisions and get things done. These can be decisions about where to build roads and schools, or how to reduce the price of onions when they get too expensive, or ways to increase the supply of electricity. The government also takes action on many social issues. For example, it has several programs to help the poor. It does other important things such as running postal and railway services. The government also has the job of protecting the boundaries of the country and maintaining peaceful relations with other countries. It is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and have good health facilities. Children, when there are natural disasters like the tsunami or an earthquake, it is the government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. If there is a dispute or if someone has committed a crime, people go to a court. Courts are also part of the government. Perhaps you are wondering how governments manage to do all this and why it is necessary for them to do so. When human beings live and work together, there needs to be some amount of organization so that decisions can be made. Some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. For example, there is a need to control resources and protect the territory of a country so that people feel secure. Governments do this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions, and implementing these among all the people living in their territory. Children, hope it is clear to you. Now let's move ahead and talk about the various levels of government. Children, now that you know that the government is responsible for so many different things, can you think how it manages to do all these? The government works at different levels, at the local level, at the level of the state, and at the national level. Local level means at the level of a village or town. Children, if you live in villages, you must be knowing about village panchayats, and if you belong to a city, You must have heard about municipality or municipal corporations. They are local governments. The state level government is the government which looks after the entire state. For example, Punjab government, Haryana government, and so on. The government at the national level is the government for the entire country. It is also called central government. The Prime Minister is the head of the government at the central level. Do you know who is the Prime Minister of India? Yes, Mr. Narendra Modi. Do you know, children, who heads the government at the state level? Yes, Chief Minister. Now, you have to find out the name of the Chief Minister of your state. I'm sure most of you already know that. Children, you will read about the governments at all three levels in detail when you go to higher classes. Now, let's move ahead and talk about laws and the government. The government makes laws and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these. This is the only way governments can function. Just like the government has the power to make decisions, similarly, it has the power to enforce its decisions. For example, there is a law that says that all persons driving a motor vehicle must have a license. Any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined a large sum of money. Without these laws, the government's power to make decisions is not of much use. Now, think of an example of another law. Why do you think it is important that people abide by this law? Children, it is not only the government that can take actions if people do not abide by the laws. There are also steps that people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. If a person feels, for example, that they were not hired for a job because of their religion or caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that the law is not being followed. The court can then give orders about what should be done. Now let's move ahead and talk about the two types of government, that is democracy and monarchy. But before doing that, let's consider this question. Who gives the government this power to make decisions and enforce laws? The answer to this question depends on the type of government there is in a country. In a democracy, it is the people who give the government this power. They do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. Once elected, these persons form the government. In a democracy, the government has to explain its actions and defend its decisions to the people. Means it is accountable to the people. Another form of government is monarchy. In monarchy, a king or queen has the power to make decisions and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision-making power remains with the monarch. Unlike in a democracy, kings and queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions they take. Children, I hope the difference between a democracy and a monarchy is clear to you. Now let's take up a small exercise to see how well you have understood it. Here we have some sentences and you have to tell if these sentences are true or false. The first sentence is, in a monarchy, the country's citizens are allowed to elect whomever they want. So children, is it true or false? Yes, it is false because it is not in a monarchy but in a democracy that citizens are allowed to elect whomever they want. Now let's look at the second sentence. In a monarchy, a king has absolute powers to rule the country. This sentence is true. Good. Now let's look at the next sentence. In a monarchy, people can raise questions about the decisions the monarch takes. This sentence again is false because no one can question the decisions taken by the monarch. He has absolute powers. It is in a democracy that people can question the decisions of the government. Children, do you know democracy is considered to be the ideal form of government? Now we shall talk about democratic government in detail. India is a democracy, and this achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. You now know that the main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. So, in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Democratic governments in our times are usually referred to as representative democracies. In representative democracies, people do not participate directly but instead choose their representatives through an election process. These representatives meet and make decisions for the entire population. These days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what is known as universal adult franchise. This means all adults in the country are allowed to vote. But it was not always like this. Can you believe that there was a time when government did not allow women and the poor to participate in elections? In their earliest forms, governments allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. This meant that women, the poor, the propertyless, and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. The country was governed by the rules and regulations that these few men made. In India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. Several people, including Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is known as universal adult franchise. Writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji said, "I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man." Not only in India, children, nowhere in the world have governments willingly shared power. All over Europe and USA, women and the poor have had to fight for participation in government. Women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War. This movement is called the women's suffrage movement, as the term suffrage usually means right to vote. During the war, many men were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered men's work. Many women began organizing and managing different kinds of work. When people saw this, they began to wonder why they had created so many unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. So women began to be seen as being equally capable of making decisions. The suffragettes demanded the right to vote for all women, and to get their demands heard, they chained themselves to railings in public places. Many suffragettes were imprisoned and went on hunger strikes, and they had to be fed by force. American women got the right to vote in 1920, while women in the UK got to vote on the same terms as men some years later in 1928. Children, with this we come to the end of today's lesson. I hope you understood it well. Now I have a small activity for you. Look at the given statements and identify the level of the government they belong to. Put tick marks against the level you consider the most appropriate. Ready? The first statement is the decision of the Government of India to maintain peaceful relations with Russia. Here, the Government of India means the central government. Children, if you look carefully, this is a matter concerning the peace of the entire country. So, this decision will be taken by the central government. The next statement is the decision of the government of West Bengal on whether to have board exams in class 8 for all government schools. Now, this decision will be taken by the government of West Bengal, and it is a government at the state level. Good. Let's move ahead and take up the third statement. Introduction of 2 new trains between Dibrugarh and Kanyakumari. Now, this will be done by government at the central level because it concerns many states. Children, here I want to tell you that anything dealing with the railways comes under the central government. Now let's look at the next statement. The decision to locate a common well in a particular area of the village. Children, in this case, the decision will be taken by a panchayat, and panchayat is a government at the local level. The next statement is decision to construct a big children's park in Patna. This decision will be taken by the municipal corporation of the city, and that again is government at the local level. The next statement is the decision of the government of Haryana to provide free electricity for all farmers. It states that the decision has been taken by the Haryana government, which is the government at the state level. Now let's consider the last statement. Introduction of a new 2000 rupees note. Children, can you make a guess which level of government will take this decision? Since this is a matter concerning the whole of country and not a particular area or state, this decision will be taken by the government at the central level. Children, I hope you all enjoyed this activity. Now let's look at the map showing the states and union territories of India and locate its capital and its neighboring countries. Children, I'm sure you all know that Delhi is India's capital, and it is here. Now, India's immediate neighbor in the northwest is Pakistan. It shares its land borders with China, Bhutan, and Nepal in the north. Bangladesh and Myanmar are its neighbors in the east, and Sri Lanka in the south. Now that was all about India's neighbors. Now I want you to find out the names of various districts in your state. Yes, you can take help from your elders or search on the internet. I'm sure you all will enjoy doing that. Now it's time to take up a few questions related to the chapter. Ready? The first question is, what do governments do for their people? And the options are build roads and schools, supply electricity, take action on social issues, or all of these? And the correct option is yes, all of these. The second question is, which type of government is chosen by people? The options are democratic government, dictatorship, monarchy, or none of these. And the correct option is democratic government. Very good. The next question is, the term suffrage means right to speak, right to vote, right to equality, or right to freedom. And the correct option is yes, right to vote. Let's take up the fourth question now. Universal adult franchise means all adults can vote, only men can vote, only poor can vote, or only women can vote. And the correct option is all adults can vote. Now let's move ahead and take up the fifth question. A monarchy is the rule by, and the options are the people, a king or queen, both A and B, or none of these. And the correct option is rule by a king or queen. And now the last question. At which level does a government work? And the options are local level, state level, national level, or all of these. And the correct option is yes, all of these. Children, with this we come to the end of today's video. I'm sure you liked it and got to know a great deal about government, its functions, and the various levels it operates at. You also learnt about two types of government, that is monarchy and democracy. I hope you all understood it well. That's all for now. I'll be back with some more interesting videos. Till then, stay healthy, stay happy.